Thank you so much for coming today. We're all really excited to talk with you about something that has genuinely shaped all of our college careers and careers beyond, mentorship. Um, okay, so this session is going to be called Mentorship in Motion, just because mentorship really isn't something that just happens upon you. It's not passive, and it's really not reserved for people who already have it all figured out. Mentorship is something that is built and nurtured over time, and it's important to start as soon as you can to really build up a network. So today we're going to break down what mentorship actually looks like in real life, and how you can start building meaningful connections starting this semester, no matter where you're at in your college journey. Okay, so before we dive into the content, we're just going to go a quick little roadmap. So first, we're all going to introduce ourselves, just so you know where we're coming from and our backgrounds. And then we're going to spend some more time defining what mentorship actually is and what it isn't, because I know that there's a lot of misconceptions about that. After that, we'll talk about how to initiate connections, so where you can find mentors, how to reach out, and how to think about outreach without feeling awkward or transactional, which I know is a big concern for a lot of people. We're also going to cover how to build and sustain these kinds of relationships once they start. And then we're going to end with one concrete action that you can all take this semester that isn't just theoretical. And then at the very end of the session, we're going to leave a lot of time for questions and answers. So please be thinking of them. We're really happy to answer anything you guys might have. Okay. So before we get into those strategies, we just want to quickly introduce ourselves. We're all industry insiders with the Career Center, and we're all seniors, but we come from very different majors, interests, and career paths. None of us started college with a perfectly clear plan, and none of our paths have been super linear. What we do have in common is that mentorship has played a huge role in navigating that uncertainty, whether it was, choosing a major, finding an internship, pivoting interests, or just feeling confident in the decisions we're making. So as you listen today, what we really want you to remember is that you don't need to be ready or qualified to seek mentorship. You just need to be curious and willing and ready to learn. So Holly, we'll start with your introduction.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My name is Holly Anderson. I'm a senior in industrial and systems engineering. I also have a minor in business finance. And my job experience is I had an internship with KPMG last summer, and I will also be working there full time after graduation. And now I'll pass it over to McCarthy and let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is McCarthy. I am a senior majoring in computational neuroscience with a minor in management consulting. And the past 2 summers, I've had kind of a mix of my major and my minor. So the summer after my sophomore year, I was a student research intern at Barrow Neurological Institute. And then this past summer, I was working at a consulting firm doing healthcare consulting. And that's where I'll be returning when I graduate in May.
Amazing. And my name is Lila. I'm also a senior. I'm a public policy major with a minor in legal studies. Most of my job experience has centered around nonprofits and government fields. So I interned for the US Senate and then have most recently been interning for the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership, which is a reentry-based nonprofit here in LA. So as you can see, we all come from very different backgrounds. So whatever your major, minor interests might be, hopefully we have someone there who can answer questions specifically about that field.
Perfect. So, in order to start talking about mentorship, we're going to kick it off with a quick question. For every one person who gets hired through an online application, how many people do you think are hired through referrals? There's no pressure to be right for this, but I do encourage you guys either to type your answer in the chat or feel free to throw a number out loud. Or if you're not comfortable with either of those, you can just think about it to yourself. I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. Most people are surprised by this, so don't overthink it. And then I'll reveal it in a second. Okay, loving the answers in the chat. We got 80%, 65%, 45%. Okay. So, actually, the answer is 12. For every one person hired through an online application, 12 people are hired through referrals. This isn't meant to discourage you from applying online. You should absolutely still do that, but this just shows that hiring is definitely driven by relationships. And that's where mentorship is going to come in. Mentorship isn't about asking someone for a job, it's more about building those relationships that naturally lead to guidance and opportunity over that time. Now let's move into what mentorship actually is. When people hear the word mentor, they often imagine a very formal, long-term relationship with one perfect person. But in reality, this looks very different. I mean, I can speak for myself and McCarthy and Lila that our mentors definitely didn't look exactly like this. There are 6 ways that we broke down what mentors look like for us. So, mentorship is learning driven. It starts with curiosity and growth, not with asking for something. The second thing is that it's reciprocal. Mentors actually also are going to get a lot out of their relationship with their mentees. They can learn a lot of different perspective, reflection, and the chance to give back. The third thing is that it's intentional. Most mentorships don't happen by accident, as Lila mentioned earlier. They happen because someone sends you a message, you're intentionally reaching out to them, and you're following up and then building this relationship. The fourth thing is that it's action oriented. Advice really only matters if you're going to apply it. So when you build this relationship with your mentor, the only really big benefit that's going to come out of it is if you're taking what they're saying and actually applying it into your job search. The fifth thing is that it's relational. At its core, mentorship is about human connection and trust. And finally, it's evolving. Your mentors are going to change as your goals and life stages change, and that's completely normal. I think it would be crazy if someone had one mentor for their whole life that applied to every single situation perfectly. You're not looking for one mentor for forever, but rather trying to build a network over time. So now we're going to move into how to actually initiate that connection to make a mentor. So where to start? I think 2 great places would be the Trojan Network and LinkedIn. Both of these areas have a shared identity, that being their school, your major, your organization. On LinkedIn, you can filter by that. Trojan Network is a system of USC alums that work at different companies, and you can reach out to them, which this is just going to lower the barrier to connection. When you reach out, the goal is not to impress, rather, it's to be clear, respectful, and human. A good message usually includes who you are, why you're reaching out to them specifically, and a low pressure ask. Often just asking for a short conversation or even just asking a few questions in that email. Another thing is to keep it short and keep it personal. And remember that quality matters more than quantity. You don't necessarily need to have a large amount of mentors, but if you do have 1, 2, or 3 mentors who are very high quality, that will definitely be more beneficial for you. Also, it's important to know that a response alone is a win. I think people in their careers are very, very busy, and you will end up reaching out to people who will just never respond to you. So know that silence is not a rejection. This is just part of the process of trying to reach out and begin to build a relationship with a mentor.
Sorry. So the real mentorship begins when someone actually responds and you get to have that conversation. So it's important to be consistent and not constant. You don't need to check in all the time, but it's important to be periodic, and thoughtful with your updates because that goes much further than frequently messaging the person. And then another is to turn advice into action. So if someone that you're trying to reach out to as a mentor gives you guidance, then try it and follow up to let them know how it went. That's how trust builds. And then finally, lead with gratitude because mentors are giving you their time and experience. So a simple thank you or an update showing their advice matters, that goes a long way. Um, and mentors really stay invested when they see that support is making an impact. So this is the most important thing we want to leave you guys with today is that we want to challenge you to send one outreach message. So one cold message via LinkedIn, email, the Trojan Network, anything like that, ideally within the next 7 days. Just one person, one message. It doesn't need to be perfect because momentum matters more than confidence. And the hardest part is just pressing send. But once you do that, you've already made progress. I took a class at USC that was in Marshall, and they suggested making networking like an atomic habit. So the professor suggested every Sunday set aside 1 hour to just browse LinkedIn or the Trojan Network and send as many cold messages you can in that hour, and you can really see how that impact unfolds over time. So now we're going to wrap up with questions. You can unmute and ask anything or type your question in the chat. So don't be afraid to speak up. Also, feel free to turn on your camera if you'd like. And just remember from today that mentorship is something that you build one conversation at a time. So we're here to answer any questions, and we can just make this an open conversation. And we'll also be leaving you guys with this slide with our contacts and everything in case anyone wants to reach out after the session. Armand, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So, I'm a freshman, studying urban studies and planning, and I don't feel like I feel like almost for mentorship, you need to have some sort of experience or like enough background knowledge in the field that you're studying. And I think that might be like almost like a mental barrier. So, what's the best way to sort of go about that? And even in conversations with individuals who have like decades of experience, and then almost showing that your eagerness is what makes you most valuable rather than what you already know.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right in saying that your eagerness does make you very valuable, and I think it's would be impressive to any career professional that you're a freshman already reaching out and already looking into this stuff. And so just showing that you're completely open and looking for that type of help, I think that's what like professionals and especially USC alumni understand because they were in your shoes once, and I think like a lot of people were, and so they like to help those because like help others in the place who are in the shoes that they were once in. Um, and did you mention, I think, did you say your major was industrial engineering?
No, I said my major was urban planning.
Oh, sorry, I don't know why. Okay,
That's all right.
got it. Yeah, Lila, you go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit as a price major. And I think the advice goes for everyone still. I think especially as you're a freshman, I think the most important thing to know is that like they understand how old you are. Like they can read your age. They're not expecting you to have, 5, 10 years of experience. I think it would be crazy if you did. And so I think be confident in the knowledge you do have. And if you're really approaching it from a learning and curiosity standpoint, they're not going to expect you to have like a huge background in the subject. And then the second thing I wanted to say was, especially as a freshman, a lot of my mentors were my professors. And so reaching out and maintaining relationships with your professors is a form of networking, and professors can be some of the best mentors you have because you get a lot of face time with them. And so I recommend like going to office hours and things like that, especially really early on in your college journey. If you're, scared to reach out to people that you like would be contacting over LinkedIn and stuff like that. Building good relationships with your professors is a really strong way to start a mentorship like process. And your professors are also some of the most connected people that you will meet. And so they're definitely able to connect you and field you along to other people that might have information that you'd be interested in. So I'd really recommend building strong relationships with your professors, going to office hours, asking questions in class, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then I wanted to follow up on that, but there's also some questions in the chat which I'll address after this. But also an example that I guess I didn't mention as we were going in the slides, but going over the slides, but a way that I have really developed and made connections throughout my time at USC is using LinkedIn, and I'll find someone who's in a position or field that I'm very interested in, or maybe someone that shared my major, or is just working in a role that I'd like to be in one day. I will reach out to them, and they're likely a USC alum because that's kind of who I target, because they're most willing to help, I think, like fellow Trojans. And so I'll reach out and say, "Hi, Sarah. I'm a senior at USC studying computational neuroscience, and I'm super interested in your career path. I'd love the chance to speak with you if you have a few minutes." And then, like, maybe propose a time or a date. And we go over all of this in our individual networking sessions, which will come up in this semester. But just a short, simple message is a great way to get started. And then, okay.
Yeah, I definitely echo what McCarthy's saying and kind of more directly in response to Ian. You said, are there any resources you could recommend for how to format cold emails? I think what McCarthy said is really great. There's something I've heard to break down the message into three parts. So, first being a personal connection, like McCarthy said, I think the easiest one for this would probably be finding a USC alum. I think the Trojan Network, just in general, is very willing to help other USC students. And just throwing that out there and having that commonality will likely higher the chances of them responding. So first is personal connection. Second would be purpose. This is what you're trying to get out of them. So you could say, I'd love to learn about your experience. I'd love to hear how you got to a position at this company or whatever you're trying to learn from them. And then third would be the low pressure ask. So would you be open to a 15-minute call on, and like McCarthy said, maybe offer a couple dates or ask them to provide their availability. This way, it's not really asking a lot of them. It's really making them likely to respond. I think a lot of people are willing to help other people as long as their schedule allows. But like I said, I think a response is a win. So feel free to send these types of messages to a person a week, five people a week, whatever you want your goal to be. And I think that anytime that someone responds, just take that as something. And once you have that 15-minute conversation, you'll definitely learn if that's someone who could be a mentor for you, who you can keep building this relationship with, or if maybe you want to continue your search and keep reaching out to people. Um, Melissa, I guess we can let you go and then go back to the questions in the chat.
Thank you. I've got two quick questions. So could you help me distinguish between a mentor and someone you would just ask for one coffee chat? Because it seems like when you reach out, it's just asking for a 15-minute call, and I'm not sure what the roles of a mentor versus someone you just ask.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think a mentor would probably just take that relationship to the next step. This might be someone that you set up a recurring call with, or you have an open relationship with. Maybe they'll offer to, oh, you could text them at any time with any questions that you have, or email them, or something like that. But I think something important to keep in mind is that the biggest thing you're going to get out of a mentor is just learning from them. So even if you do just have a coffee chat with someone one time, that could still be someone that you consider a mentor because you could be learning something from them. Um, but I think for me, I would say the biggest difference is that that would be a relationship that would be ongoing and more than one time.
Yeah.
I also think, just to follow up on that, a lot of times like coffee chats are structured very much with, jobs you're looking to apply for, internships you're looking to apply for. And I think you can think a lot more broader in terms of mentorship. So a lot of times mentors are maybe not like would be your direct supervisor in that role, or it wouldn't be someone who's like a really recent college grad. It's usually someone a little bit older, although obviously there's non-traditional mentors as well. And so I think that a lot of times for like a very traditional coffee chat, like you're learning more about a job, you're learning more about a position someone has currently. Whereas for mentorship, that can be a little bit broader. And it can be someone who, maybe you admire their career trajectory in the field you're in and want to learn more about that. And then you want to build that meaningful relationship up. And so I think that's a little bit more the difference. But it also, I think, just depends honestly, like on how well you get along and how well you click with the person you're talking to, because I think anything can turn into mentorship. It just really is about like connection and how willing they are to help you out.
Yeah, and then just to go off of that really quick, I think that there's absolutely value in every conversation you have, no matter how much one like really clicks or not. And it's important to at the end of each call or each like yeah, just coffee chat you have, ask whether that person has any additional people that they suggest you speak with, and maybe one of those will connect and really become like a recurrent mentor. And like an example of how I've developed like a certain mentor in my life. The beginning of my sophomore year, I found someone on LinkedIn who had recently graduated USC a few years ago, had been a similar science major to me, and was working at a company that I was interested in, which was Amgen. And I connected with him, and he just kind of told me about like the trajectory he took to get to where he was. And it was a really great conversation. And then a couple weeks later, he reached out and mentioned that he was going to be coming to the USC Career Fair. So then I went up to his booth there, met him in person, and same with the following year, I got to see him there again. And so because of those, like just couple relationships, I mean, couple interactions, that can really like snowball into something bigger where I feel comfortable reaching out to him with any questions or anything like that. Um,
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And then, Brendan, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate it. Um, I'm wondering if there is like a faculty list of everyone in all the schools and their like email, or do I have to like go to these different events and like ask if they know someone in an area that I'm interested in?
Yeah, Lauren, who is our advisors on this call, and she might know more about that because I would just say, that's definitely not impossible to find. Like if there's certain like sectors you're interested in, that's something you could look up online and find like professors or faculty in this area, and their emails are usually very accessible online. But Lauren, I don't know if you have any further information on like a full list of that.
Yeah, no, thank you. As far as a full list, that's definitely a wish list item that I wish that we had something like that available. But I certainly think starting with individual faculty and seeing if they have recommendations, and it really is more so a word of mouth or maybe who they're working on with different projects and such. Depending, I mean, with 23 different schools, there's a lots of different ways that this information is being collected, but certainly starting with your existing faculty. Um, and if you wanted some additional follow-up, I'd be more than happy to meet with you one-on-one and kind of walk through what that might look like for the more specialized areas, or maybe even I work in the main career center, but the different academic units also have career individuals who can then sometimes help with the more specialized fields and would certainly be willing to help out students in that capacity as well. So hopefully that offers a little bit of insight. Thank you.
It does. Thank you so much.
And then we can go ahead and look at the chat. So, okay, we addressed Ian's question. Caroline, I feel that we addressed that one with how long does it take to like build mentorship and lead to an internship opportunity. Um, that kind of, yeah, just again, like snowballing those interactions into something greater. And once again, I think there are so many different like platforms and environments you can leverage for this. For example, the internship I had last summer, I had applied online to Protivity, but then I ended up meeting the recruiter for it at the career center or at the career fair on campus while I was actually working at it with the career center. And then we had a great connection. And then he actually referred me because it's kind of hard to just drop a resume right now and get a job. So those in-person interactions are key.
Yeah, I agree
Oh,
with McCarthy. I think building a relationship with the recruiter is definitely something that I've found to be very helpful. Another thing I want to say is going back to how mentorship is about learning. So, having a mentor might, I know we gave that stat that 1 in 12 people um, were hired via referral, but I think that mentorship also is just a really good way to learn about a position, about someone's career path, and learn more about maybe a specific company that you're interested in applying for. I know from personal experience, I talked to a bunch of people at KPMG before my interview. So then when I went into the interview, I feel like I actually had a very good understanding of the people who worked there, the type of work that they did, what the company's values were, and I was able to speak to that, which showed that I had put my time in networking with those people, which I think is arguably maybe just as beneficial as having actually a direct referral to that job. And then in terms of addressing your second part of your question, Caroline, is it too late to start reaching out as a junior? I would say absolutely not. I think even as a senior, it wouldn't be too late for me to reach out to people. I think even if you have an internship secured or have a job secured, it never hurts to know more people, to learn from more people. You never know where your career path is going to go down the line. An extra connection with someone will never hurt you. I think the bigger your network is, the better it will be. So yeah, I definitely would say reaching out as a junior is not too late by any means.
yeah, to follow up on what Holly was saying, I actually, the internship I had last semester, I got through networking my junior year. So I had reached out to an advisor I had in a club who was a USC alum, who helped me put on this like big service event at the end of that semester. And we stayed in contact all summer. And at the beginning of the semester, he had asked like, would you be interested in this? Like it was just kind of a timing was right thing where they had a position available and he knew I was qualified for it because of our existing relationship. And so it really is a matter of like timing. But it's definitely never too late to start reaching out for that kind of thing. And yeah, I would really highly encourage it.
I'm gonna go ahead and answer Caroline's again. For all recruiters I talked to at the career fair and sent a message to after, no one replied to my message. Do a lot of them not read messages from students at the career fair? Um, I think it can be kind of hit or miss. Like some booths have so many students lined up and like with their resume, and they hand them the resume. But similar to those coffee chats that you set up, I just think it can be like hit or miss. Not everyone's gonna click. Um, but sometimes you can really form a connection with them. So for me, when I connected with that recruiter, he went to U of A and I'm from Arizona, so we connected over that, and then we just had like a good personable interaction. It didn't even have anything to do with the job or the company really. But that's just the type of thing that can occasionally click. Um, but then again, it's also, I think, can be beneficial to like cast a wide net. Like Holly said, she talked to a lot of different people at KPMG before. So whether that's USC alum, just different people you find that just started there maybe, or even other recruiters, I think there's benefit to just reaching out to like as many people as you can in a role or a company.
I can go ahead and answer Violetta's question in the chat. So she asked, what are some good questions to ask when initially meeting, and what are good ways to break the ice? For this, I would recommend kind of going head first into whatever you think that personal connection is. So say that you led the email that I'm a student at USC and you know that they're at USC. You can maybe start kicking it off, be like, oh, what was your major when you were at USC? How do you think that applies to the job that you're currently in, or something like that? Um, I think in any sort of coffee chat or anything, like once you find some sort of little connection between the two of you, even if it's something like McCarthy said, her recruiter went to U of A and she's from Arizona, and you just start making it a little bit more of a natural conversation, I think things become um, much more natural, much more relaxed, and that's when you're going to actually be able to ask them the questions you want to ask and learn from them the most. So I would recommend leading with something that you know that you have in common, even if that's LinkedIn stalking them a little and they went to the same high school as you, or you know someone who went to their college, and something as small as that. But it definitely just leads into that more natural conversation.
I think that's also one of the really big pros with networking with fellow Trojans, because you will always have that in common. And so there's, alumni love to talk about like what's going on USC's campus, like how are you liking it, and that kind of thing. So you have a very easy, immediate icebreaker on that. We also had a question I think that we missed about a list of specific targets to cover in the first contact message. Did you mean by that like things to say? I think I'm just a little bit confused.
Oh, thank you. No, the example you provided was good. I just wanted to
Okay.
know if there were specific areas like your degree, your title, um, your focus, your goal, like how much of that do you cover, or also how much do you, yeah, pretty much how much of that do you cover in the first email?
Yeah, for sure. So you definitely want to keep the first email shorter. Like it shouldn't be, paragraphs and paragraphs. Like people are really busy and you want them to be able to digest your message easily. I would say definitely like name, grade, year, major for sure. Make sure you have that in every email. And then beyond that, I think it really depends on what the position is. So if you have like a minor that really aligns with like what they're doing, I would include that because that's automatically something you guys can talk about. But beyond those key things, I think it's a little bit up to you. Just make sure you have that concrete ask in there, as Holly was talking about, to make sure it's not just like an open-ended email and there's something for them to respond to.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then I will look at Caroline's question again. I have a question on talking to recruiters at career fairs. We don't know who they are before talking to them, so how do I know what thing we have in common that I can use to connect? I don't think recruiters' names are shown there before the career fair. Yeah, so again, that I think that's okay to not know going into it. If there's a way you can find out, then that's great. If you do get their names, which maybe the Career Center can provide, I'm not totally sure. But then that way you could look them up on LinkedIn. And that's something I often do before like a first round interview is typically with a recruiter maybe. And so you'll get their name and you can just look up their background a bit so that you have some relevant questions that you know to ask. But that can also be applicable to just like coffee chats or meeting a recruiter at a career fair. But if you don't know anything about them, that's also totally fine. And you can usually kind of like find something off the bat maybe. Because they'll most likely ask you about yourself because they're the one looking to recruit you. And then you can also ask them similar questions too, like learn a little bit more about their background. But it's also important for like going into a conversation with a recruiter, have your elevator pitch. So kind of like the 30-second like spiel about yourself. And maybe they'll pick up on something from that and like pull at a certain string.
Yeah, I think it definitely is difficult to go into a situation not knowing who you're going to be talking to, especially at something like a career fair. The advice I would give for this is obviously like have your elevator pitch prepared and things like that. But also just follow up with them afterwards. You'll most likely get their name and or their email. So you could always follow up with them afterwards, mention something that you talked about while you were there. This just goes to show that you were listening to them, that you actually are invested in working there and things like that. And although I said that I have a really good experience with my recruiter and McCarthy does as well, I don't know if this is necessarily something that needs to happen right off the bat. Like if you go up to a recruiter at a career fair at a company and you guys aren't like best friends right off the bat, that doesn't mean that you're gonna for sure not work there. I think it's just more so like following up with them, maybe also asking them for other people you could reach out to at the company. I think recruiters are really good at that, at knowing who would be someone who would be a good match for you, who to talk to. Obviously, they go through this process every single year, so they probably also know people who have more recently joined the company, like from USC in a similar major or something like that. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about necessarily like in that specific situation at a career for having to go up to a recruiter and knowing exactly what you're going to be saying to them to try to make a connection. Okay, and then Caroline, you also asked, is it okay to talk about non-job related information to recruiters to connect at the career fairs? Um, I don't know if this is like a hard and stone rule, but I personally would say that's totally fine. I think I've had better success connecting with people just in general when I'm not talking completely about career stuff. I know in interviews and stuff I've talked about either where I'm from or some of my hobbies or things like that. And I think, again, that just goes to build that personal connection, which shows that you're a real person, not just a person on a resume and things like that. So I think it's totally fine to do so.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that one of the nice things about talking to recruiters in person is that they really get to know like the human beyond the resume and beyond the cover letter. And so I think as long as you're not like having that completely dictate the conversation, like you want to make sure you're still making enough time to talk about, the jobs, internship, the company, whatever it is. It's totally fine to talk about non-job related information. I would just say like don't make that maybe the main thing you're talking about. And then I think there was another question about how many job applications did you submit in total roughly to eventually get an internship? That really, really depends on what industry you're applying in, what type of roles you're applying for. So I think that every internship I've had, the number has been very, very different. But I would be prepared to apply that you're not apply for one position. You know what I mean? I'd be prepared to apply for upwards of 20 or 30. Sometimes we get lucky and you won't need to do that many. But I think it really just depends on what industry you're in. And I'm sure that number differs for McCarthy and Holly as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Lila said. I think it's just depends on the person and the type of effort you're putting into those applications. For example, if you're just going through Handshake or LinkedIn and dropping your resume to every single application, you could be applying to like 100. But if you're making like a very intentional effort and building up a large network at a certain place before applying, and like targeting a few places in that way, then your number might be a little less.
Okay, I think we've addressed all the questions in the chat. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or again, raise your hand. You can come off mute. But we have another 25 minutes. So if anybody, no matter how big or small your question is, this is a very safe space. Feel free to ask whatever you want. I think this is a really good chance to ask those questions that you guys want the answers to. So yeah, definitely don't hesitate.
Yeah, also, all of our emails are up on the screen, so feel free to email any of us with questions. And we're also be continuing to have sessions like these over the rest of the semester. You can find them the same way you found this session through Handshake, so please keep an eye out for those. They're all on different topics and will be hopefully really helpful for all of you. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to add to that, I do want to commend you all just for signing up for this. I think even just the fact that you're interested in learning about this is a really great start to your career search. You guys are definitely on the right path. Doing things like this is a great way to get yourself involved. And if you continue to sign up for things like this, continue to do coffee chats and things like that, you're definitely just on the right path. And I know it's a stressful time, but I just want to commend you all for being so ahead of the game. It's the first week of school and you're on this session, so that's already a great start. Um, Katie asked, how can I access the slides afterwards? There will be a recording of this Zoom posted to the Career Center YouTube. Normally, these are posted within 2 to 3 days after the session, so you can keep an eye out for that. And then once it's posted on the YouTube, it also will be accessible through the Industry Insiders website. So you can keep a lookout for that. It should be probably by the end of the week or early next week.
And then, oh, sorry, Lila, did you want to go ahead?
I was just going to answer the next question, but you're
Oh
welcome
yeah,
to.
we can all answer this one. Someone asked what is a coffee chat, which is a totally understandable question to ask. We should have addressed that initially. The term is definitely weird because most likely you're not actually meeting up with this person and having coffee. But it's just the common term that is used now for like an initial interaction or a way to network with someone. So I think it probably historically has that term because it was people meeting up, having coffee, but now it just means like reaching out to someone through a cold message, having a like a cold call, um, like through Zoom or Google Meet, and just getting to know that person and like their career path and stuff like that. So it's kind of coffee chats are kind of a way to just build your network.
Yeah, I agree with McCarthy said. Out of all the coffee chats that I've had, I think only one of them was actually in person getting coffee. I think that definitely is just a term maybe before the whole virtual environment became a thing. But yeah, it's just basically a quick think about it as if you were go to get coffee with someone, sit down, and how long it would take you to both drink your coffee. It's a very casual thing. There's not a lot of pressure for it. Now it's not necessarily drinking a coffee together, but just hopping on a call, whether that's it could even be a phone call or a Zoom, and just casually talking for 15 or 30 minutes or whatever you want it to be. Okay, I am. Oh, okay. Lauren asked a question. She said, "Is it better to connect with people who are closer to their college graduation or more seasoned professionals? And can you speak about the differences?" I think it's definitely beneficial to maybe do a little bit of a mix. The benefit to talking to more recent grads is they're going to have a much better understanding of the recruiting process. Like, say someone just graduated this past year and they're hired at a company that you want to go work at, they're very vividly going to remember what the recruiting process was like, what the interview was like, how many rounds the interviews were, what type of questions they were asked, and things like that. But I think the benefit to talking to more seasoned professionals is they've been at that company longer. They've probably had a lot more experience, maybe worked in many different fields at many different companies. But they probably have a much better understanding of what their role actually is. Someone who's been working at a job for a year probably doesn't even fully understand everything that they're doing. But I would say it's definitely beneficial to talk to a mix of both.
Yeah, I agree with Holly. I think that especially for people who are much closer to their college graduation, a lot of times I think that not to stereotype, but those conversations might flow a little bit easier and might be a little less intimidating. So I would recommend like when you're just first starting out cold emailing people, that might be a good place to start. They're closer in age, you probably share more interests in that kind of thing. So I think it's a lot of times when I've done it, those conversations flow really easily and you just get along really well. And so a lot of times that makes me feel more comfortable to ask questions that I genuinely have. Whereas if it's like someone who's like really high up in a company, I might not feel as comfortable asking questions that I want like very candid answers about, if that makes sense. And I think that's really important when you're trying to figure out fit at companies or organizations. So yeah, I agree with Holly. Both are beneficial. It just really depends on what you're looking for. That's a great question, Lauren. So she asked, what recommendations do you have for introverts who want to start networking? I totally get that fear. I'm a very, very introverted person. And so the first networking I actually did at USC was because I took a class with Lauren that's required for Price majors. And so she made us, as an assignment, reach out, I think, to three like working professionals and interview them. And so like I had to write a little paper on it or whatever. And so I think my recommendation for introverts would definitely be to start small. And also, when I was first doing it, I would like send a message, and if someone wouldn't respond, I'd be like, oh my God, they hate me. What am I doing wrong? Like, why don't they want to talk to me? And a lot of times people just like don't see messages. The people you're reaching out to are super, super busy. And so I really honestly think one of the best things to do is to get desensitized to it. It's not a rejection if they're not responding to you. They're just very busy people who probably didn't see it. And so I think start small, start slowly with, a LinkedIn message, a cold email, something like that, and then get more and more used to it. And as you get more and more used to it, you'll feel more confident doing it. But I totally understand the initial hesitation, especially for people who are more introverted.
Jenny, I just am reading your message in the chat now. I appreciate that. I would love to chat with you. If you don't mind just sending me an email to follow up after this. Our emails are still on the screen right now. So mine's hollyand@usc.edu. And we can definitely find a time to talk and maybe even do an in-person coffee chat.
All right, sounds awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that goes for all of us too. We are here for you guys as resources. So if you want to reach out to us and just ask us a question over email, if you want to set up time for us, um, I think Lila or McCarthy mentioned this, I forget, but we also have a bunch of events coming up for the rest of the semester. So definitely check out Handshake, go there to see what else we're bringing this semester. But we're really excited. But yeah, also feel free to reach out to us individually and set up time to talk to us one-on-one because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, this month, January, is mentorship month. So we have a couple more sessions regarding mentorship topics. So next Wednesday, we have another one at this exact same time, 3 p.m. And then following in February, I believe starting in February, each of us are going to have also individual um, workshops and sessions for our particular sectors. So if you want to get information tailored to your major or your career interests, then come to our sessions, which are also posted on Handshake. And then we'll also have like group coffee chats for our sectors and things like that. And all of this can be found on Handshake. And I believe Lauren just dropped that link in the chat.
I think that's all we have. Well, me and McCarthy will be hanging around till 4 if anybody else has questions. I know Lila has to go to run to class. But thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate it. And thank you for the participation and asking all the questions. I hope you guys learned something from this. And remember, our one goal from this is maybe send one cold email in the next 7 days. You have to start somewhere, and I think just starting with that initial momentum will definitely get you rolling. But again, you guys are all on the right path. Being here today, it's kicking off the semester right. But appreciate you guys all joining, and we'll